Trials to make people show identification before they can vote could unfairly affect older people who are less likely to possess photo ID or have access to other documents. The Labour Party and charities have warned. The proposal to counter voter fraud by making people show ID will be piloted in 5 parts of England for the local elections in May, ministers announced this year. Voters in Woking, Gosport, Bromley, Watford and Slough will be asked to produce identification. In some areas people will be asked for photo ID such as a passport or driving license. In others they will just have to show the polling card sent out to people's homes. A Labour analysis of the test areas has shown that at least 10,000 people aged 65 or over, and possibly many more, in the 5 towns are unlikely to have approved photo ID. This is because older people are less likely to have a passport or driving license. Data from the 2011 census shows that while 83% of adults overall have a passport, this falls to 70% of the over 65s and 46% for those aged 85 and over. For driving licenses, the National Travel Survey shows that while 73% of those aged 17 plus hold one, this falls to 62% for those 70 or older, and to 50% for women of this age group. Kat Smith, the Shadow Minister for Voter Engagement, said the trial would present a major challenge for many older people. She said, polling stations are already inaccessible, particularly for those who are not independently mobile and individuals living in residential care. With a significant proportion of older people not carrying personal ID, this additional requirement presents yet another barrier to democratic engagement. With less than 6 months to go until the local elections, the Cabinet Office needs to set out clear guidelines on how those without photo ID will be able to vote as soon as Parliament returns so that no older voter is disenfranchised. Caroline Abrahams, the charity director at Age UK, said, whilst electoral fraud is an issue that must be combated, there is a risk that the introduction of voter ID cards will have a disproportionate impact on older voters. We know that older people often face barriers when they are asked to prove their identity. They may not have a utility bill, particularly if they live in a care home or a relative looks after their bills, and are much less likely to have standard types of ID such as passports and driving licenses. Older people are also likely to face other hurdles, including barriers to accessing transport and limited mobility, which can make getting to a polling station much harder. It's important that any scheme put in place to address electoral fraud does not inadvertently disenfranchise certain groups, including older people. The government will decide on its plans for voter ID after analysing the trials. In Northern Ireland, voters have had to show ID since 1985. Chris Skidmore, the Minister for the Constitution, said the government was working closely with the pilot local authorities and others to ensure eligible voters were not stopped, and that there were contingency plans in place in each area. He said, safeguarding our democracy so that every voter's identity is protected and electoral fraud is eliminated is a key part of ensuring we can have confidence in our democracy, protecting some of the most vulnerable, whose identity could be at risk of being stolen.